For over 2,000 years, humanity has been searching in all the wrong places. We've looked to the heavens, to religious institutions, to rituals and ceremonies, hoping that somehow, somewhere out there, we might finally encounter the power of God. We've prayed with our faces turned upward, our hands outstretched, begging for intervention from a distant deity who seems perpetually just beyond our reach. Has this ever happened to you? Have you ever felt that exhausting cycle of petition and waiting, asking and hoping, only to wonder why the breakthrough never seems to come? What if everything you've been taught about accessing divine power has been completely backwards? What if the very thing you've been desperately seeking outside yourself has been residing within you all along, waiting patiently for you to simply recognize its presence? Smith Wigglesworth understood something that most religious teachers have either missed entirely or have been too cautious to speak plainly about. He discovered that the statement, "Christ in you, the hope of glory," wasn't meant to be a comforting metaphor or a poetic expression of faith. It was a literal declaration of the most revolutionary spiritual truth ever uttered. The divine presence you've been seeking isn't somewhere else. It's not in a distant heaven, not in a sacred building, not even in the pages of holy books. It dwells within the very fabric of your own consciousness, right now, in this exact moment. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. This isn't blasphemy, though it might sound radical to ears conditioned by traditional religious teaching. This is the deepest mystery of mystical Christianity, the secret that transforms everything about how you approach healing, abundance, purpose, and your fundamental identity. When you truly grasp that Christ consciousness isn't something you need to earn, attract, or become worthy of, but rather something that already constitutes your truest self, everything changes. The frantic spiritual search collapses. The desperate prayers transform. The anxiety about whether you're doing enough, believing enough, or being enough simply dissolves. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might completely revolutionize your understanding of your own spiritual nature. Smith Wigglesworth didn't teach people to look harder, pray longer, or try to convince God to pay attention to their needs. Instead, he revealed that the infinite power most people spend their entire lives begging for is already fully present at the center of their being. It's not dormant. It's not waiting for the right conditions. It's actively expressing itself as the intelligence that animates your body, the awareness that comprehends these words, and the life force that sustains your existence without any conscious effort on your part. Think about that for a moment. What beats your heart while you sleep? What coordinates the millions of processes happening in your body right now without you having to think about a single one? This isn't random biology. This is divine consciousness expressing itself through you, as you. And if this intelligence can manage something as complex as your physical form, what else might it accomplish when you finally recognize it and stop blocking its natural flow with doubt, fear, and the belief that you're somehow separate from the divine? This recognition changes absolutely everything. And in the moments ahead, we're going to explore exactly how this truth manifests in practical, tangible ways that transform your daily experience of life itself. The question isn't whether Christ consciousness exists within you. It does, whether you believe it or not. The only question is whether you're ready to recognize it. And here's where most people's entire spiritual journey takes a dramatic turn, because the moment this recognition happens, truly happens, the search itself completely collapses. Think about that. All the striving, all the seeking, all the trying to become more spiritual, more worthy, more acceptable to God, it all falls away in an instant when you realize you're not trying to reach something distant. You're awakening to what has been your reality since before time itself began. This is the hidden truth that transforms everything. Your identity isn't that of a struggling human trying desperately to connect with the divine. Your actual identity is the divine presence expressing itself in this unique form you call yourself. The spiritual journey you thought you were on, climbing some ladder toward God, progressing through levels of worthiness, earning your way into divine favor, that entire framework was built on a fundamental misunderstanding. You were never separate from what you were seeking. You were just convinced you were, and that conviction created an entire life pattern of lack, limitation, and endless petition. Smith Wigglesworth saw through this illusion with stunning clarity. He recognized that traditional religious approaches, while well-intentioned, often keep people locked in spiritual childhood. You learn to pray by begging a deity somewhere out there to notice your problems and decide whether or not to help you. You develop elaborate techniques for getting God's attention, as if the infinite consciousness that sustains galaxies might somehow be unaware of your existence unless you perform the right rituals or say the right words. The entire mindset is one of separation. You here, God there, and a vast distance between that you're desperately trying to bridge through effort, faith, or moral achievement. But what if the whole framework is wrong? What if divine power isn't located in some distant heaven, waiting to be convinced to descend into your life? What if it's already fully present as the very essence of your consciousness right now, and the only thing required is recognition? This isn't about achieving anything new. It's about awakening to what already is. Prayer stops being petition and transforms into something entirely different. It becomes recognition, acknowledgement, a conscious awareness of the presence that has never been absent, for even a single moment. If these insights are opening something new in your understanding, make sure to subscribe to the channel. This is where we dive deep into mystical truths that actually transform lives, not just fill your head with more information. This shift in understanding creates a revolution in how you approach absolutely everything. Your relationship with challenges transforms because you're no longer a limited human, hoping an external force might intervene. Your consciousness, itself, temporarily experiencing particular circumstances, but never limited by them at your core. The decisions you make come from a completely different foundation. The impact this has on your daily experience is profound, yet it doesn't require you to change anything about your external life. The transformation happens in how you see, how you know, how you relate to the reality unfolding around you. Now, I want to go even deeper into this recognition, because understanding it intellectually is just the beginning. There's a specific practice that makes this shift from concept to living reality, and it's simpler than you might imagine. Most people expect spiritual transformation to require years of discipline, complex techniques, or exceptional circumstances. But the truth is far more accessible than that, hiding in plain sight within your own immediate experience. Write in the comments, "I recognize this truth," if what you're hearing resonates with something you've always sensed but never quite been able to name. The practice itself is astonishingly simple, yet it contains the power to revolutionize your entire experience of existence. When you truly comprehend this indwelling presence, something fundamental shifts in how you relate to prayer itself. It stops being a conversation where you're asking someone else to do something for you. Instead, it becomes pure acknowledgement of what already is. You're not pleading for intervention. You're recognizing a reality that has never changed, regardless of circumstances. Consider what's happening in your body right now as you focus on these words. Your heart is beating without you having to consciously manage each contraction. Your lungs are expanding and contracting, processing oxygen through millions of intricate exchanges you never have to think about. Your digestive system is working, your immune cells are patrolling, your neurons are firing in patterns of staggering complexity. All of this happening without your conscious direction. What intelligence orchestrates this? What power sustains these millions of processes simultaneously, flawlessly, moment after moment? This isn't dormant consciousness waiting to be activated through the right prayer or enough faith. This is living presence expressing itself as you, through you, continuously. The Christ within isn't some potential you might tap into if you achieve sufficient spiritual development. It's the active reality of your being right now, whether you recognize it or not. Your recognition doesn't create it or turn it on. Your recognition simply allows you to consciously participate in what has always been operating behind the scenes of your existence. This revelation dissolves something that has plagued religious understanding for centuries: the belief in fundamental separation between human and divine. That framework creates an entire identity built on lack and unworthiness. You see yourself as a flawed, sinful creature, hoping to somehow bridge an impossible gap to a perfect, distant God. The journey becomes about transformation from one state to another, from human to divine, from unworthy to acceptable. And that journey, by its very nature, can never end because it's predicated on the assumption that you are not, in your essential nature, already whole. But what if that entire assumption is the illusion? What if you're not a sinner desperately seeking redemption from an angry deity? What if you are divine consciousness itself, having temporarily forgotten its own nature? The journey then becomes completely different. It's not about changing from one thing into another. It's about waking up to what you've always been, like someone who fell asleep and forgot their own name, their own home, their own identity. The awakening doesn't create anything new. It reveals what was always true. This shift in perspective has massive implications for how you navigate daily life. Your challenges don't disappear, but your relationship with them transforms entirely. You're no longer approaching problems as a limited being hoping an external force might step in to help. You're approaching them as consciousness itself, recognizing that the same intelligence managing your heartbeat and breath can also illuminate solutions, open pathways, and reorganize circumstances in ways the anxious human mind could never orchestrate. The impact of this understanding ripples through every decision you make, every relationship you navigate, every obstacle you encounter. It changes the foundation from which you operate, and when the foundation shifts, everything built upon it naturally realigns. But this isn't something you can force or manufacture through willpower. It emerges through a specific kind of attention, a particular quality of awareness that Smith Wigglesworth taught with remarkable precision. Drop "awakening now" in the comments if you're starting to sense the difference between seeking transformation and recognizing what's already present. The practice Smith Wigglesworth taught is deceptively simple, which is precisely why so many people overlook its power. There's no complex ritual involved, no special location required, no elaborate preparation necessary. You simply sit quietly and turn your attention inward. But here's the crucial distinction. You're not seeking anything. You're not trying to find God, contact a higher power, or achieve an elevated state. You're simply becoming aware of the awareness itself. Let me make this concrete right now. As you hear these words, there are thoughts moving through your mind. Maybe you're analyzing what's being said. Maybe you're relating it to your own experience. Maybe you're questioning or agreeing. But here's the question that changes everything. What is aware of those thoughts right now? What is noticing the mental activity? There's a witnessing presence observing the flow of thoughts, emotions, and sensations, and that presence itself never changes. Circumstances shift constantly. Thoughts come and go. Feelings rise and fall. But the awareness in which all of this appears remains constant, unchanging, eternal. That witnessing presence is Christ in you. It's not something you need to create, develop, or earn. It's already here, already functioning, already aware. You're simply learning to recognize it consciously. This is the hidden truth that mystical Christianity has been pointing toward for centuries, often in coded language, because direct statements seem too radical for conventional religious frameworks. But the revelation is this: your essential identity is not the changing content of your experience. It's the unchanging awareness in which all experience appears. Now, here's where most people immediately run into an obstacle. The mind hears this explanation and immediately wants to turn it into another project, another thing to do. It wants steps, techniques, strategies for achieving this awareness. But that very impulse misses the point entirely. Christ consciousness isn't achieved through effort. In fact, effort conceals it. It's revealed through stillness, through a gentle withdrawal of attention from the constant focus on the outer world of effects. Your mind has been trained since childhood to focus outward, on problems to solve, goals to achieve, circumstances to manage, people to impress or please. This outward orientation creates the illusion that your well-being depends on arranging external conditions correctly. But when you regularly rest in inner awareness, even for just 5 minutes daily, something begins to shift in your perception of reality. You start noticing that peace doesn't actually depend on circumstances being a certain way. It's present beneath the surface of circumstances, always available when you turn your attention toward it. If this message shifted something in your perspective, hit that like button. It's a simple way to let me know this content is serving you, and it helps others who are searching for these truths find their way here. This practice requires patience because the mind resists simplicity. It wants to complicate, to add layers, to make spiritual development into a complex achievement that proves your worth. But the deepest truths are always simple, though not necessarily easy to embody consistently. The challenge isn't complexity, it's remembering to recognize what's already present when your attention gets swept away by the drama of daily life. The transformation doesn't happen through mastering advanced techniques. It happens through the consistent return to simple awareness, over and over, until it becomes your natural resting place rather than something you have to consciously choose. What's fascinating is how this practice impacts everything else, without you having to consciously apply it to specific situations. Your decision-making shifts because you're operating from a different foundation. Your relationships change because you're no longer seeking completion in others. Your response to challenges transforms because you're identified with the unchanging observer rather than the changing circumstances. Comment, I am the observer, if you're beginning to distinguish between the content of your experience and the awareness in which it all appears. The transformation doesn't typically happen overnight, and that's actually important to understand because it prevents unnecessary discouragement. Most people who engage with this practice experience the shift gradually over weeks or months. You start noticing subtle changes first. Maybe you're less reactive when someone cuts you off in traffic, or you find yourself responding to criticism with curiosity rather than defensiveness. There's a growing sense of peace that persists even when external circumstances remain chaotic. What's remarkable is that situations which used to completely disturb your equilibrium begin losing their power over you. That difficult coworker, that financial pressure, that family conflict, they're still present, but they don't penetrate as deeply. This isn't because you've adopted positive thinking or convinced yourself everything is fine when it's not. It's the natural result of identifying with the changeless Christ within, rather than with changing human conditions. Your center of gravity shifts from effect to cause, from the surface turbulence to the depth that remains still regardless of storms above. This shift reveals itself most clearly when you face real challenges. Consider what happens in a typical crisis situation. Illness strikes, money runs out, a relationship fractures. The standard human response is immediate panic, followed by frantic problem-solving mode. The mind races through scenarios, desperately trying to figure out how to fix things, control outcomes, prevent worst-case possibilities. There's an underlying terror that if you don't personally manage every detail, everything will collapse. But when you genuinely understand Christ in you as your living reality, something different happens. You still acknowledge the challenge. You're not in denial about circumstances, but you pause before reacting. And in that pause, you recognize that the divine presence within you is completely untouched by these appearances. The illness exists in the body, not in consciousness. The financial lack exists in external conditions, not in the infinite supply that is your true nature. The broken relationship exists in the realm of effects, not in the wholeness that constitutes your being. This distinction is crucial and often misunderstood. You're not pretending problems don't exist. You're recognizing that they exist at one level of reality, while simultaneously knowing a deeper level remains unaffected. It's like waves on the ocean's surface. No matter how turbulent they become, the depths remain undisturbed. When you identify with the depths rather than the surface, you respond to challenges from an entirely different foundation. From this perspective, solutions often emerge that your anxious mind could never have conceived. You might receive an unexpected phone call, encounter information at exactly the right moment, or suddenly see an approach that was invisible when you were caught in panic mode. This isn't magic or wishful thinking. It's the natural intelligence of consciousness expressing itself when you stop blocking it with fear-based mental activity. The practical impact of this realization extends into every area of daily life. Health situations that seemed dire suddenly shift. Financial resources appear from unexpected directions. Relationships that appeared broken beyond repair either heal or gracefully resolve in ways that serve everyone involved. But here's what's happening behind the scenes. You're no longer trying to force outcomes from a place of lack and limitation. You're allowing the infinite intelligence that already sustains your existence to express itself through your circumstances. Type "consciousness is the source" in the comments if you're recognizing how this shifts your approach to challenges from control to recognition. Smith Wigglesworth was adamant about making a critical distinction that many people miss entirely. This practice isn't about denying that problems exist or pretending everything is fine when it clearly isn't. That would be spiritual bypassing, and it leads nowhere productive. What he taught is far more sophisticated. It's the recognition of a deeper reality that exists simultaneously with surface appearances. You acknowledge the situation honestly. Yes, there's physical pain. Yes, the bank account shows a deficit. Yes, the relationship is fractured. Those are facts at the level of external circumstances. But simultaneously, you recognize that Christ consciousness itself contains no disease, no lack, no discord. At the level of your true identity, wholeness is complete and unchanging. These two realities coexist, and the question becomes which one you identify with, which one you allow to be primary in your awareness. As you rest in the awareness of wholeness, not forcing it, not trying to make yourself believe something you don't, but simply acknowledging what is true at the deepest level, something remarkable happens. Solutions begin emerging that your anxious human mind, churning through worst-case scenarios and desperate strategies, could never have conceived. Healing doesn't come through struggle, through trying harder, through forcing outcomes. It comes through the natural expression of the wholeness that is your actual identity. This is where the journey requires a certain spiritual maturity to fully grasp. It's not a beginner's mindset, not because it's complicated, but because it requires you to hold two seemingly contradictory perspectives simultaneously without collapsing into either extreme. You're not pretending the problem doesn't exist. That's delusion. But you're also not seeing yourself as merely a limited human struggling against insurmountable odds. That's also delusion, just a different kind. Instead, you're seeing the situation from the standpoint of consciousness rather than from the standpoint of struggling humanity. And this shift in perspective, subtle as it might sound, changes absolutely everything about how the situation unfolds. From this elevated vantage point, what appeared completely insurmountable often begins to dissolve or transform in ways that make no logical sense from the human perspective. A diagnosis that seemed final suddenly reverses. A financial situation that appeared hopeless unexpectedly resolves through means you never could have orchestrated. A relationship that seemed damaged beyond repair either heals in profound ways or gracefully concludes so everyone can move forward. These aren't random coincidences or lucky breaks. This is mystical Christianity in action, consciousness recognizing itself and naturally expressing as harmony, wholeness, and provision. The hidden mechanism behind this is that you've stopped fighting reality at the surface level while simultaneously remembering a deeper reality. That paradoxical position creates space for divine intelligence to work in ways that human effort blocks. Your anxious striving actually prevents solutions because it's based on the assumption that you, as a limited human, must personally fix everything through willpower and control. But when you recognize consciousness as the actual source and allow it to express naturally, you remove the primary obstacle, your own fear-based interference. What makes this approach so transformative is that it applies to absolutely every category of human challenge: health, finances, relationships, career decisions, family conflicts. The principle remains the same. The surface situation is acknowledged honestly, but your identity and trust rest in the consciousness that knows itself as complete. Leave. Wholeness is my truth below. If you're beginning to sense the difference between struggling against problems and recognizing the deeper reality beneath them, what makes these principles come alive is seeing them work in actual human lives, not just as abstract spiritual concepts. Consider Sarah's journey, which perfectly demonstrates the hidden power of this understanding. She spent 15 years as a faithful church member, attending services regularly, praying earnestly, doing everything her religious tradition told her would bring healing. Her chronic anxiety was the focus of countless prayers, hers and others praying for her. She believed, she had faith, she asked repeatedly for God to remove this burden. But the panic attacks only intensified. Eventually, she could barely leave her home. The anxiety had become her identity. She was the anxious one, the person who struggled, who needed healing, who was waiting for God to finally intervene and fix her broken state. Every prayer reinforced this identity of lack, this position of someone incomplete, desperately seeking completion from an external source. Then she encountered Smith Wigglesworth's teaching on Christ in you, and everything shifted, not immediately, but fundamentally. She began practicing the simple recognition we've been discussing. Instead of begging God to take away her anxiety, she started turning within to recognize the divine presence as her actual identity. At first, nothing changed externally. The panic attacks continued, but she persisted with the practice, sitting quietly multiple times daily, becoming aware of the awareness that witnessed even the panic. The breakthrough came gradually. During one panic attack, instead of fighting the sensations or collapsing into them completely, she remembered Christ in you and became conscious of the consciousness observing the panic. The attack didn't stop immediately, but something profound shifted. She experienced herself as larger than the symptoms for the first time. She wasn't an anxious person having an experience of panic. She was consciousness itself, temporarily experiencing anxiety as a passing wave moving through, but not defining her essential nature. Over the following months, the panic attacks decreased in both frequency and intensity. But more importantly, her entire relationship with anxiety transformed. She no longer identified as someone broken who needed fixing. She recognized herself as the unchanging piece of Christ consciousness, occasionally experiencing the human condition of anxiety without being consumed or defined by it. This identity shift accomplished what 15 years of traditional prayer never could. What's crucial to understand about Sarah's story, and countless others like it, is the timeline. Smith Wigglesworth emphasized this pattern repeatedly because too many seekers give up when instant miracles don't appear. None of these transformations happened overnight. Each person practiced recognition of the indwelling Christ consistently over weeks and months, often while external circumstances appeared completely unchanged or even worsened. The turning point never came because God in heaven finally decided to answer their prayers. It came when their identity shifted from struggling human to consciousness itself. This distinction reveals the hidden mechanism behind all genuine spiritual transformation. You're not waiting for something external to change your situation. You're recognizing what's already true about your nature, and that recognition naturally reorganizes your entire experience from the inside out. The circumstances might change or they might not, but your relationship with them transforms completely because you're no longer at their mercy. Right identity transforms everything. If you're seeing how this shift in self-understanding changes the entire spiritual equation, the foundational practice of recognizing Christ in you opens the door. But Smith Wigglesworth taught several complementary approaches that deepen this realization and make it more stable in daily life. These aren't additional requirements or steps you must master before the first practice counts. Rather, they're natural extensions that create more space for divine intelligence to express itself through your awareness. One powerful technique he called resting in the Word. When a problem demands your attention and your mind wants to race into anxiety mode, instead of mentally wrestling with solutions, you rest in a spiritual truth. Something simple like, Christ in me is my sufficiency, or divine presence is my reality. But here's the key. You're not repeating it mechanically like a mantra or affirmation. You're letting consciousness itself reveal the depth of meaning within those words. You might sit with one statement for 5 or 15 minutes, allowing it to unfold its implications in your awareness without mental effort or strain. Another approach involves what he described as listening for the still small voice. After acknowledging Christ in you, you sit in receptive silence with an inner question about whatever situation you're facing. But you don't try to answer with your thinking mind. You simply listen in the silence the way you'd listen for a distant sound. Most of the time, no words come, just deepening peace. Occasionally, a knowing arises that's distinct from your usual mental chatter. It comes as gentle certainty rather than anxious thought. This inner voice never brings condemnation, fear, or urgency. Those signals indicate ego speaking, not Christ consciousness. Developing this listening capacity requires consistent practice over time, because you must learn to distinguish the authentic inner voice from the many imitations your mind produces. But as this sensitivity develops, it becomes reliable inner guidance for decisions that far surpasses human reasoning alone. Smith Wigglesworth also emphasized what he called living by grace, remembering throughout your day that Christ in you is the source of your activity. Before important meetings, difficult conversations, or challenging tasks, you pause for 30 seconds to silently acknowledge the divine presence as the intelligence acting through you. This isn't asking for help. It's recognizing what's already true. When you remember you're not acting from limited human capacity, but from infinite consciousness, anxiety about outcomes dissolves and creativity flows naturally. Perhaps most challenging is the practice of impersonalization, recognizing Christ consciousness not just in yourself, but in everyone, even people whose behavior appears anything but divine. When someone creates problems in your life, you silently acknowledge that this person is also Christ consciousness expressing, even if they've completely forgotten it. Their troublesome behavior comes from that forgetfulness, not from their true nature. As you hold this recognition without telling them, relationships often shift in unexpected ways. What all these practices share is that they're not techniques for achieving something new. They're ways of remembering and recognizing what is already true. They create the mental and emotional space for consciousness to reveal itself naturally, without force or manipulation. The profound revelation you're touching now is that Christ in you isn't a future promise you're working toward, or a distant hope you're trying to reach. It's present reality right now, in this exact moment. The full presence of divine consciousness is the very awareness within you that's comprehending these words. Your only task is recognition when you forget, not achievement of what already is. Comment present reality. If you're beginning to sense that what you've been seeking has been here all along, simply waiting for recognition. The mystery that has been hidden for centuries is no longer hidden from you. It lives as you, breathes as you, exists as the very awareness reading these words right now. And this isn't the end of the journey, it's really just the beginning of living from this recognition in every area of your life. If this message resonated with something deep inside you, something you've always sensed but couldn't quite articulate, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. This isn't just another collection of spiritual videos. It's a space where we explore these profound truths in practical, accessible ways that actually transform how you experience daily life. Every video is designed to take you deeper into this recognition, to help you navigate the challenges that arise when you're shifting from human struggle to consciousness itself. And here's what I'd really appreciate. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, drop a comment saying, "This message was meant for me." It helps me understand that these teachings are landing with people who are genuinely ready for them, and it creates a community of seekers who are on this path together. The like button might seem like a small thing, but it genuinely makes a difference in helping this content reach others who are searching for exactly what you just discovered. If this shifted something in your understanding, go ahead and let me know with that simple click. Now, there's a video right here that takes this understanding even deeper into how Christ consciousness actually manifests in specific life situations, relationships, health, finances, all of it. Click and continue with me over there, because what you've learned today is just the foundation for what's possible when you truly live from this recognition. I'll see you in the next one.